This video is about moods. Although not everybody generally says the same thing about what moods are exactly, they are best explained in terms of comparing them with emotions, because emotions and moods do have a lot of overlap. So let's compare emotions with moods. So let's start by thinking how long each of them last. So emotions don't tend to last very long. Sometimes emotions last for only a few seconds in response to something that's just happened, whereas moods can last from minutes to days possibly. Also, the difference between emotions and moods in terms of what they are responding to. Emotions usually happen in response to one thing that's just happened. But with moods, you can just wake up in a particular mood, which can be good or bad, or positive or negative, and it's likely a few different things will have resulted in your mood. The things that caused your mood might not be obvious to you at all. Also, you can think about how strong moods and emotions are. Emotions can be extreme and take over your whole body and thoughts, whereas moods are usually more like a sort of a background feeling. And also the difference between how moods and emotions are expressed. We tend to express our emotions, and they often show clearly in our faces and the way we hold our body, whereas moods don't always show quite as much, although we can look a bit grumpy when we're in a low mood. Moods affect emotions in many ways, as the two do overlap a lot. So for example, if you're in a negative, or as it's often called, a bad mood, you're more likely to have negative or unenjoyable emotions triggered. Whereas if you're in a positive, or as it's known as, a good mood, you're more likely to have positive emotions triggered in you. A mood affects how we see and think about the world. So if we're in a positive or good mood, we're more likely to see and think positive things. Whereas if we're in a bad mood, we're more likely to see and think negative things. We can develop different moods at different times. Here are some words that could be used to describe moods. Lots of the words are linked to emotions, as both emotions and moods are ways of feeling. Moods, like emotions, can be positive or negative. Positive moods, they're often called good moods, could be cheerful, optimistic or hopeful. Negative moods, which are often called bad moods, could be grumpy, weary or irritable. If you don't know what some of these words mean, you could look them up. Moods can last anything from several minutes or hours to a few days. Most people experience a sort of a natural up and downness as the hours and days roll by. So it is quite normal for somebody to wake up one day just feeling a bit low, only the next day to wake up and feel really quite cheerful. This is completely normal for lots of people. However, something that's important to say about moods is that if you have felt sad or worried for more than 2 weeks and you just cannot shake the mood off, you might have a mood disorder, which is a bit like an illness, and this will probably mean that you need some help. So if you ever find yourself with a low or anxious mood for more than 2 weeks, you need to keep telling adults until someone helps. So what can affect our mood? Well, lots of things can affect our mood, even the weather, for example. So for most people, if we wake up and it's beautifully sunny, that can trigger a positive mood in us. But there are other things that can affect our moods in both positive and negative ways. So let's have a look at some of the things that can affect our mood, perhaps mostly in negative ways. How much sleep we have affects our mood. Not getting enough sleep can make us far more likely to be irritable, more stressed, angry and mentally exhausted, so we don't feel like doing very much, which in itself can add to our low mood. Our health affects our mood, as it's hard to feel really cheerful when we're ill or in pain. But also relating to health, our diet can affect our mood. Eating lots of fruit and veg has been shown to improve mood, and not getting enough of them has the opposite effect. Also, exercise affects our mood. Nearly everyone states that they feel great after exercise, and if we don't get enough exercise, our mood can be affected in a negative way. I will also add that even something as simple as being hungry or thirsty can trigger a grumpy mood. How others have reacted to us or behaved towards us can also affect our mood. Sometimes we can realise we're in a bad mood because of how someone treated us earlier in the day. We might not even have given it much thought at the time, but we can be left with an agitated or a low mood. This one seems quite obvious, but what is going on in our lives can affect our mood. This can include what we're thinking about or what's on our mind. If something is quite consistently bothering us, this is likely to put us in a low or anxious mood. What we're doing or what is happening to us either right now or generally in our lives can affect our mood. If we hate doing something, we're unlikely to be cheerful while we're doing it unless we try really hard to change how we think about it. And if we're unhappy with something that we have to do often, like go to school, this can affect our mood a lot as well. Sometimes we can simply be in a grumpy mood because something unpleasant happened that day, like we were told off. Sometimes mood is the result of a collection of things that have happened, such that you might end up saying, I've had a really difficult day, or I've had a hard week. If we don't feel like we've anything to look forward to, this can affect our mood in a negative way, as well as if we're dreading something that's coming up. If you're stressed because there's too much going on, it can affect your mood. It usually means that you need a break when that happens. So what's going on in our lives can trigger a mood, and moods are a bit like background emotions that last a long time. So lots of things can contribute to us ending up in a negative or bad mood, and negative moods are not a lot of fun. So I wonder, are there any ways in which negative moods can be helpful, in the same way as sometimes negative emotions can be helpful? Well, surprisingly, or not surprisingly, there are a few ways in which they do help us. So here's a few examples of how negative moods can be helpful. So, if we're in a bad mood for a while, it usually tells us that there's an issue that we need to get on and do something about. Moods can keep us tuned into something that's bothering us so that we're driven to try and sort it out. When we're in a negative mood, we do usually have a drive to improve our mood, and this can make us do things like connect with other people or help others. And sometimes a mood can make us rest and take time out when we really need it. Another thing to say about moods is, like emotions, they can affect our behaviour. So say we're in a grumpy mood, for example, it can sometimes make us a bit snappy with other people. It can make us perhaps want to hide away and keep away from other people, or sometimes it just makes us feel like we don't want to do anything at all. If you catch yourself being a bit unpleasant to someone because you're in a bad mood or a negative mood, the best thing you can do is admit that you're in a bad mood and say sorry for any behaviours that were unpleasant. Your mood doesn't make your behaviour okay, but it helps others to understand how you're feeling, and people are more likely to forgive you if you say sorry. So can we turn a negative mood into a more positive one? Well, most of the time we can, but it does require us to first notice our mood and then to decide and be a bit determined to do something about it. So let's have a look at some of the things that might help when we're feeling a low mood. A lot of these strategies are quite similar to dealing with unenjoyable emotions, but there is a slight difference in that it is different managing short-term emotions compared with longer-term moods. A really good idea for us all is to create what I call a low mood menu. This would be a list of activities or prompts that you could turn to every time you felt low or in a bad mood. As different things work for different people, and people like different things, all our menus would look quite different. So the kind of things you could put on this menu could include things that relax you, so meditation or mindfulness, yoga, or even listening to some music. And don't forget, we always feel more relaxed after we've exercised. You could also include things that connect you with other people, which could simply be going and visiting a friend, or it could be finding a club or a group activity to do, or asking the right person to help you.
You can also have on your menu opportunities to help or be kind to other people, like making a card for someone, thinking of and doing acts of kindness, helping a family member or a neighbour by washing their car or sorting or tidying something. Or you could get involved in raising money or volunteering for a charity if you can. Also, you could put on your menu prompts for new experiences and challenges, as they can pick you up quite quickly. So it's about finding something new to do, like a new hobby or collecting something or visiting a place that you haven't been to before. Or you could set yourself challenges like trying to get super fit or learning to cook something new. Another idea could be learning about something so well you become an expert in it. Or you could challenge yourself to do something differently from how you usually do it. For example, if your room is always messy, you could challenge yourself to keep it tidy. Also on the menu, you could include things that give you a sense of achievement. So making plans. Plans often make us feel good. So for example, you could plan a picnic for a friend or a nice thing to do on a friend's birthday. Tidying and sorting things is also often satisfying, and as is doing a job you've been putting off, even if it's something like homework. Also on your menu, you could include getting outside and in touch with nature, because getting outdoors makes most people feel better. You could simply go for a walk or climb a tree, you could eat a picnic, you could draw pictures of flowers, you could take photos of trees and try to identify them. Anything that gets you outside, enjoying nature and fresh air. Another thing you can put on your menu, which might sound a bit odd, is simply to smile, because research has shown that simply smiling can trigger a better mood. It might sound odd, but give it a go.
So what have we learnt? Well, we've learnt that moods and emotions are connected and similar in several ways, but generally moods last a lot longer and they're not as powerful as emotions. We've learnt that moods, like emotions, are a normal part of being a human being. We've learnt that lots of different things affect our mood in both positive and negative ways. And we've learnt that there are lots of things we can do when we're experiencing a negative mood that will help us.